Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. But it's very strange to think that 35 years ago, this magazine was founded, and this is our 35th year. And it's a tribute not just to us, but to every one of you and to the people who, over the years, have made it very special for us to come here once a year and celebrate the incredible story of Irish success. And you all know your story. You know that 3-4 generations ago, you were digging roads, you were helping out in dirty, messy jobs, you were a French maid, you were a nanny, whatever you were, and now look at you. You're hanging out in Wall Street, you're having a great time. You're even in the room with Denis O'Brien, which is a mixed blessing. But I sincerely want to thank everyone for coming, because it is a special day. Sorry, I've had too much wine. But I want to introduce the next speaker, and I asked him, I said to Michael Dowling, what are you doing? He said, I just organized another plane flight to Ukraine of medical supplies. And if you know Michael, you know he takes this crisis personally, because there's no greater humane guy I know. He's the head of the largest hospital group in New York State with 800 employees. And he's a legend in his own business, but also among Irish America. And when Michael says he'll do something, he definitely does it. And I think it's great to have him here. It's great to have him introduce our main speaker, our main guest, Denis O'Brien. So would you give a big round of applause, please, to Michael Dowling.
Thank you very, very, very much. And let me begin by saying a special congratulations and thanks to Niall and Patricia Hardy for everything they've done over these many, many decades to keep the spirit of Ireland alive, the spirit of Irish Americans alive, the spirit of Irish culture and Irish history alive. So give Niall and Patricia another one. It's also just absolutely wonderful to see so many people in person without wearing masks. We get to see what we all look like and realize that what we have been through over the last couple of years. But we're resilient. We can deal with these issues. But this is a moment, I think, in this place, and this time, in this city, and this week, for just to take a moment to reflect a little bit, and to reflect on, for all of us, our good fortune. To reflect on what the last 2 years meant to us, meant to our communities, meant to our families. I don't think I would be wrong in saying that everybody has been changed a little by the last 2 years. And in many ways, despite the difficulty, I think we have been changed for the better because of the last 2 years. Because ever so often, you need to get reawakened about what's important. So this week, especially, when we celebrate Irish history and Irish heritage, we reflect on that. We reflect on where we came from. We reflect on all of those that came before, the trials and the tribulations that they went through to create an environment and an America that we can all benefit from now. And of course, it gets us to reflect on our obligation and our responsibility as leading citizens of this city to ask ourselves, what do we do to leave a legacy for those who come after us? And as was mentioned by other speakers earlier, It gives us an opportunity to reflect on the liberties that we too often take for granted, the freedoms we cherish, the democracy we applaud, and how fragile it can be, and what we need to be doing to preserve it. So as you march up Fifth Avenue and you gaze at the wonders of the city of New York, give a little thought to what it all means for us, for Americans, and reflect on the benefits of immigration, the importance of being an immigrant. And we all are immigrants, every single one of us. Some came more recently than others, but we all came. Traveling some of the same journeys that many people today are trying to replicate. Again, something to reflect. We're very fortunate to be Irish. We're very fortunate to be Americans. And we're unbelievably fortunate to be Irish Americans. I think the best combination that you could ever come up with. So I have the distinct privilege of introducing an unbelievably special person. Many of you in the room I know him well, and I'm sure everybody in the room knows of him. You're aware of his extraordinary business accomplishments. You're aware of his leadership. Leadership not just locally, but throughout the world, bringing opportunity to parts of the world that didn't have that opportunity before. You're aware of his entrepreneurship and his creativity. Denis obviously is an excellent business person, a leader in his field, but he is more than that. He's also a humanitarian who does extraordinary work wherever he is. He believes very, very strongly in the concept of community and how it is important for all of us to be building those synergies that make communities work, that we are all interdependent. And so he has spent a lot of his time and his resources focused on promoting education, building schools, providing a lot of other humanitarian assistance all over the world. Now, it would be easy just to be successful. It would be easy just to stand up and say, look at me, I run huge companies, I have run many, many companies, I have merged with many, many companies. Some people do that. But others go beyond and they do something well and something right with the resources that comes from those successes. But Denis is even more. And I've had the privilege of getting to know Denis over the years. Denis as a person. Because let's be honest, at the end of the day, that's what we'll all be remembered for. Not what we necessarily did, but who we were. Were we decent, honest, kind, compassionate, caring? Did we care about those around us? Did we believe in the humanity of man? That's what people remember. Were we good people? Not whether we were a CEO or not. Being a CEO is important. We've lots of CEOs here. But Denis is one of those unbelievably kind, caring individuals. When you're with Denis, you feel better. You walk away a better person after spending time with Denis O'Brien. That effervescent smile, from Cork. That constant smile, that feeling that he gives you that, yes, I want to help. And yes, I do care. And yes, we have all a responsibility to do more than we're now doing. That we all need to raise the bar to make everybody else better. Denis is not just a person of success. He is a person of real value. We all benefit because people like Denis are in our midst. So with that, it is my great honor to ask Denis O'Brien, who will be inducted into the Irish Hall of Fame, Irish American Hall of Fame. And by the way, I've been to New Ross, and there are the pictures of many people up there. When Denis's smiling face gets up there, it will make everybody else look better. Denis O'Brien.
Quite an introduction, Denis. And what we're doing is a format which Denis prefers, which is I'll ask stupid questions and he'll give intelligent answers. That's what's called being a journalist. I've been doing it for 40 years. Could I just briefly mention James Morrissey, who made this event possible, who works with Denis and is just a great guy. James, thank you for all your help.
Thank you, James.
Denis, what's your view of the world economy given events in Ukraine?
Gee, that's a hell of a question.
I told you it was stupid.
Oh God, I think it's going to be very bumpy, and obviously, you know, the markets have been reasonably steady in terms of. You would have thought there'd be a greater swing in terms of and a greater volatility in the market. So that is kind of unusual for such a major seismic event such as the invasion of Ukraine. So I think oil is going to have a massive impact in terms of inflation. So we're into a very volatile period over the next 2 years.
So you've met scores of world leaders. What do you make of Putin? I told you these questions were going to be.
Well, he's certainly in a long line of mad, crazy leaders, you know, that we've seen.
Sounds like Michael
over history. So I think Putin has been playing chess and the West has been playing drafts up until recently. And I stress up until recently because, you know, he doesn't really have to get elected, whereas the president of America has to get elected, all the European leaders, and their thinking is short-term rather than long-term. He's a very long-term thinker. So I think this may be his final miscalculation. He hasn't made many miscalculations. And I thought, you know, I think at the end of the day, he thought that he would be welcomed by the Ukrainian people. Because when he went into Crimea, many of the people who lived in Crimea welcomed the Russians as such. And I think that has been a very significant miscalculation. I think also it's unified Europe in a way that nobody ever expected. And, you know, it's even brought, you know, some countries like Poland and Hungary who were in major dispute with the European Union back into the fray as such. So I think for the first time the world is acting in a unified way against Putin, and I'd say that's hard to believe. The outlier, of course, is China, and whether they're going to help Russia at this time with armaments. Obviously they're going to buy a lot of oils, but there aren't many pipelines between Russia and China. So it's all very fragile, it's all very complicated, and I think this could go on for maybe another year or two unless there's kind of a score draw.
Right. How stupid do the British look now over Brexit?
You know, I'm not a British basher, to be honest with you. I think, you know, they by a majority of 2 or 3%, they've introduced. They voted for Brexit. I think there's a lot of regrets and Schadenfreude. But we've lost a great ally within the European Union in Great Britain. And now we're a little bit more vulnerable to the larger voices within the European Union. So I think Great Britain is going through a real state of flux at the moment, and I don't like to see that, to be honest with you. I'd rather see a strong Britain and not an embarrassed Britain.
Right. This is probably the greatest commentary on somebody I've read. Former President Bill Clinton wrote in Time magazine cover story that Irish businessman Denis O'Brien's move to make cash transactions, this was in 2012 by the way, cash transactions available for the poorest in the world via cell phones was the #1 idea in changing the world. How did you come up with that, and can you explain philanthrocapitalism?
Well, at that time there was a lot of money coming into Haiti, but they were not getting money, social security payments to women with children, and they somehow, people would come in and apply, a woman with children, and actually bring their children and apply, and then they were able to register. So a lot of the money that was distributed at that time, which is no longer in place, came from the US and the European Union. So we weren't the first to do it, but we were the first to do it in Haiti in a very smart and quick way, where about 500,000 mothers with children got a small stipend of about $30, $40 a month, and that was at that time really needed in 2010. In terms of philanthrocapitalism, I think in America, philanthropy is just like so more advanced than anywhere in the world. Everybody gives, they give small money, big money. But I think more and more now people are looking to the Chuck Feeney way of doing things, and the concern way, where if you give money, you want to see outcomes, you want to see measurement. And, rather than giving blind trust money, which sometimes works, sometimes it doesn't work, you want to see a project, beginning to end and what the outcome is. And I went with Concern, and it's great to see Joanna Garrity here, our chair from Concern Worldwide. I went to Ethiopia with my wife in 2000, and I just could not believe the professionalism on the ground and the way they had everything planned, every dollar that was, being donated, that they had an outcome, and then they had a maintenance of these program to maintain the wells. So after that, obviously on a much bigger scale, then you've got what Chuck Feeney did in Ireland, where, again, I went to see him one morning in Bagot Street, and he just laid it all out for me. And it was just a lesson in just how to, make money travel and do what it's supposed to do. So I think, there's in the future, and if you look at the Gates Foundation, they are doing exactly the same thing. Everybody wants to measure and make sure that what you were promised is delivered on. And so it's not that new a concept, it's just that if you want to do it on a kind of industrial scale, you need to be organized.
Right. I asked one of your personnel what makes you happiest, and they said probably in an orphanage in Haiti, looking after some homeless kid. Tell us about your involvement in Haiti.
Well, I must say I love going to Haiti. When I tell people I love going to Haiti, they think I'm out of my head. But Haiti for me is different to what people's perceptions are. The people are just magnificent. They're incredibly talented, hardworking, artistically, musically. I was telling Joan, our Judy, just about how strong Haiti is in the arts. It's just an amazing country, but never given an opportunity. The total budget for education is around $200 million, and there's 11 million people. So Concern have a huge team on the ground there. They're running schools, they're running projects, but it's the NGOs run Haiti. And unfortunately, what has crept in now is that there's a lot of lawlessness, and we really need the UN to come back in and engage, the US to engage as well. But there's so many things in the world where there's other things going on that are deemed to be more important. But, there's 11 million people. They paid $19 billion for their freedom to the French over a period all the way to the 1950s. So all the cupboards were bare because they paid for their freedom. And unless there's kind of a Marshall Plan for Haiti and a new constitution, it's really not going to make the progress that it needs to make as a country.
Bill Clinton is heavily involved with you in many charities. So can you tell us what he's up to recently?
Well, he's about to restart the Clinton Global Initiative. Maybe I shouldn't have said that, but I just know from talking that he wants to get it going again. And that's where he basically got suits like me to come and make commitments. And it certainly softened up a lot of Fortune 500 CEOs, because if they made a promise, he actually held it to them. And I think now where we are in terms of sustainability and everything, even more important that the CGI comes back. He, after the earthquake, used to go down at least 2 to 3 times a month on day visits to work with community leaders and assess projects that the Clinton-Bush Foundation was funding. I've never seen any politician anywhere in the world give that kind of a commitment. He would fly down at 4 or 5 in the morning and go home at 9, 10 o'clock at night and meet literally 20, 30 people and listen to them and then sit on a board and decide to fund their projects or not. A phenomenal commitment in terms of it. So his interest in Haiti is probably his number one country that he's interested. Maybe I'm speaking out of turn here, but when he gets going on Haiti, he's very fluid.
Right, obviously. You have very strong opinions on how Facebook operates. You have said, quote, "We will look back in 50 years' time and we will say, how in the name of God did the world allow Facebook to do what they did to society?"
Well, my father used to always say to me, if you've nothing nice to say about somebody, say nothing. And Facebook is the antithesis of that, because it's anonymous. And we can see now in all our countries that Facebook is in decline. Thank goodness. It's a kind of a stock that you'd short, because the hatred and the influence it's had on children is just shocking. And what children say about other classmates, particularly young girls, and how the impact on them, and us as parents, are kind of powerless, really. And small things and big things, but what happened with the Rohingyas in Myanmar was all led by false postings, video postings on Facebook. So I actually think that this is a pretty bad period. When we look back, we'll have lots and lots of regrets.
Right.
So it needs to be regulated. People need to identify themselves. If they're saying that you did something, they should identify themselves. Now that sounds old-fashioned, but in reality, it has to become more regulated. You just can't use the hatred that we have at the moment and keep going like this forever.
Finally, you said you acquired your business acumen from my father's whole side of the family came from a small farming background. I think that is where it comes from. You think city kids are missing out by not going to animal fairs. If you go to a mart, you learn an awful lot. It's like a life's education in a day. Interesting.
Well, yeah. I mean, I hate to say this, but in Digicel we mainly hire culchies, it's a very dangerous thing to say nowadays because everybody's so politically correct. And why do I think that? Is because anybody who worked on a farm, knows commerce and is reared in a kind of commerce. Now it's not a formal commerce that you might get in UCD, but certainly if you're living on a farm with your parents trying to eke out a living, it's a different world as such. And if you're the 4x4 generation with your mother driving you around Dublin, I'm not sure you learn different things, and probably good things as well. But I'd err on the side of the culchies. I think, we can all get formally taught in education, in school, in secondary school or high school and university, and all that is beautiful, but it's very quantitative and not very qualitative.
That's a wonderful way to end, Dennis.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Can I thank Ambassador Nason Byrne, or Byrne Nason, sorry, and also Ambassador as well for coming this afternoon. Can I thank Michael for your very warm words, and the Ambassador's very warm words. And can I thank you, Patricia, for everything as well. Thank you. We had a trip years ago that Patricia reminded me down to Sudan with concern, which was a blowout trip. And of course, can I thank you, Niall, for your generosity, and to thank you for what you do with the Irish American community and bringing people together. It's great to see people all together and sharing stories and having a bit of fun this afternoon. And thank you for everything that you do. Thank you.
Thank you very much.